Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 3 and Out podcast. We're on episode 11 now in our second season. Always a good one here in store on the 3 and Out podcast. We've got a big one coming on the show today, as always. Ben Pope and Mike Cicchetti, the appears to be mustache brothers. I think Mike cut off the sides of his beard. He's now rocking the Wario look. Love to see it out of Mike Cicchetti. But Ben also trimmed up a little bit. They're looking pretty snazzy. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, Ben's a little frozen right now. He's back now, but I thought this was no shave November, and we're over here shaving the beards.
Just
I
call him Wario, dog.
I didn't refer to him in an insulting manner. I said he looks classy in the Wario look.
That's one. Call me Wario. Two, I did this for my Halloween costume, which was a big hit, I might add. Three, I forgot my third point. But yeah, I didn't a little hurtful. A little hurtful on that one, BC. Calling me Wario.
I'm sorry, Mike. My apologies.
Third point, no shave November. I haven't shaved fully, oh god, since it's probably been 4 years since I've clean shaven.
When was the last time anybody actually shot clean shaven Cicchetti? 4 years ago?
Yeah, somewhere. I always used to say it was when I graduated high school, June 2017, but it wasn't because on my Snap memories a few months ago, I was looking in 2018 and I was like, oh, bare face. So like spring 2018. So it's coming up on 5 years in a few months.
Is it a blessing or disguise that people haven't seen you without a beard?
A big blessing.
A blessing or disguise?
Is it a blessing or rather a curse? We'll say that.
Oh, it's a blessing.
Wow. Oh
It's a
my
blessing.
god.
No,
Why are
nobody.
you just insulting Mike?
I'm not
to start
insulting
off?
him.
Mike,
No.
also, you shaved your mustache to be the Joker.
hmm
Can I ask why?
I'll put it simply, to make the makeup process easier. I was running into some issues with this part, so I said, I guess we'll just have to shave it because I was walking around putting lipstick on all day, and it just turned out easier if I shaved the sides out. I mean, a little weird look, but we'll take it. It's only I'm only gonna be dealing with this for like a week or two before it grows back, so I ain't hating too much.
Well, that's hurtful because I look the same way. And also, don't kiss and tell with all that lipstick, doggy. But
Well,
that's beside the point. Brett?
Our main point today is we've reached about the halfway point in the NFL season, at least our terms here in the 3 and Out podcast. And with that, it means our very special mid-season awards episode is upon us. It is now time where we look back to our preseason awards predictions and make our new predictions now, see where we've changed, where we may have stayed the same. I mean, if we're looking at just our lists alone here, some people have stayed the same, at least on my end. I'm sure you guys have a little bit of replicas as well, but I know Ben's got a little bit of
We'll see if we agree on if those are true predictions there, Brett. And just to clarify for everyone, these are our midseason awards. These are the players that we believe deserve these awards as of week 9 in the NFL. These are not predictions on what will happen by the end of the season, just an indication of what we're looking towards.
Yeah, right on the nose there, Ben. I think without further ado, we can jump right into it. We're going to begin with Offensive Player of the Year. We're going to save MVP for last. Mike, I'm going to start you off with this one here. From where you saw it before in preseason up until now, who is your maybe new Offensive Player of the Year?
Originally I had Justin Jefferson. It's changed though. Halfway through the season, it's without a question for me, Saquon Barkley, Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, Saquon Barkley is averaging, I want to say, around 120 scrimmage yards per game, and he is basically the lifeline of that Giants offense. Their receiver room isn't, much at all. I don't think they have a receiver that averages over 50, 60 yards a game this year, which says a lot, especially with their record being 6-2 at this point. Improvements coming from with Brian Dable, first off, coming over from the Bills into that head coach role of the Giants, having them at 6-2 with the team that has made some improvements, but nothing super drastic. So it's good to see them being 6-2 and Saquon Barkley being basically the heartbeat of that offense. Makes him a pretty clear choice for me to be an offensive player through the midseason.
Ben?
Yeah, I'm going to go in a different direction here, but nothing to discredit on Saquon Barkley. My pick, I had Justin Jefferson in the preseason. And I have converted to a different wide receiver wearing the, I guess, green and orange, or it can be blue and orange. Tyreek Hill. Teal? Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is, on average, on pace for one of the best, if not the best, receiving seasons we've ever seen. He has over 900 receiving yards already, 69 catches. Nice. He is on pace for 147 catches and over 2,000 receiving yards this season with Tua Tagovailoa and this new Dolphins offense. He's looked unbelievable. It's kind of a question to see, like, oh, he's moving away from Mahomes to Tua. How would he kind of adapt to this new offense? He's probably got number 2 in Jalen Waddle, which makes them one of the best receiving duos in the league. Is that going to be any different from having a tight end as his main competition targets? Tyreek's been unbelievable. Honestly, it makes me question if the Chiefs and their offense maybe like limited Tyreek a little bit just because his target share wasn't as great as it's been this season with Miami, because he has been undoubtedly the number 1 wide receiver on this team. No slash Jalen Waddle or anything, but Mike McDaniel has gotten the most out of Tyreek this season. Same with Tua when he's been healthy, and he's having an unbelievable season. And he might be one of the best, if not the best, receivers in the game right now, just the way he's playing. So I got to give it to Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, I'm actually on agreement here with Ben. I have Tyreek Hill as well. I originally had Justin Jefferson as my offensive player of the year that has since changed. Tyreek Hill is actually the first player in NFL history in the first 3 of 6 games in a season to have 10 catches for at least 150 yards. So in 3 of his last 6, he's had at least 10 grabs, 150 yards. It's unbelievable what he's been able to accomplish so far, not just with Tua Tagovailoa, but with the other quarterbacks as well that have been forced to enter the games for Miami. And I just think he's entered a role now with the Dolphins where he's really allowed his dynamics to show and to blossom. I honestly agree with Ben as well in the sense that maybe the Chiefs did hinder his abilities a little bit with the amount of sharing they had to do with targets with Patrick Mahomes. And now that Tua's only got one other target that he really goes to in Jalen Waddle, it sort of allows Hill to do his thing and to really flourish as a true wide receiver 1. So I have him as a clear Opoy. I definitely think Saquon's up there as well in terms of value and offensive production, but Tyreek Hill's the man, and I think you're going to see it for the rest of the year in the offensive player of the year category. So we'll leave it at that. We have Saquon and 2 Tyreek Hills to start out on the board. And with that, it brings us to defensive player of the year. I'll start it off with Ben this time. Ben, did we stay the same or did you go different for defensive player of the year?
Yeah, so my pick before the beginning of the season was Nick Bosa, and it is actually going to stay the same. I still have Nick Bosa as winning defensive player of the year. I think there are a few candidates in the top tier here. That includes Micah Parsons, that includes Myles Garrett, and that includes Nick Bosa. I think Nick Bosa has done phenomenal this season. He is tied for second in the league with 8 sacks on the season, leads the league currently with 19 quarterback hits through 7 games. So he has done an unbelievable job. Him and Fred Warner are the clear top tier pieces on this San Francisco defense. And yet again, I believe that San Francisco is being carried by their unbelievable playmakers on both sides of the ball. I think that you can make very solid arguments for both Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons as well. But kind of just sticking with my guy here, they're all very much in the same tier. I think it's kind of between picking hairs for me, but I'm going to stick with my guy, going with my preseason pick and sticking with Nick Bosa.
Mike?
Preseason, I have Myles Garrett. All credit to him and what he's done. All credit to Nick Bosa. I got to go Micah Parsons. Just the pure dominance that he plays with, 8 sacks on the year, 3 forced fumbles. He's just, it's crazy to see a second-year player demand so much, pass rush protection, getting guarded by double, sometimes triple teams, and that you can say the same thing for Nick Bosa. I think they're super close, but I just think I give Micah Parsons the benefit of the doubt, just because of the I don't know, just on tape, the dominance on film. I think he has, and the offensive line protection that he demands. I'm going Micah Parsons for my defensive player.
I like that, Mike. I also had Micah Parsons as my preseason defensive player of the year. However, I have since changed. My defensive player of the year is Matt Judon. 8.5 sacks on the year. He's tied for the lead with Zadarius Smith. When I look at this statistic, and not so much the factor alone, I take into account a lot of the value things that Judon has brought to the Patriots defense, and how, quite frankly, without Judon, the Patriots pass rush hasn't really done much. And I think a lot of the credit for their quarterback hits, the pass rush efficiency, and of course the sack count has been towards Matt Judon. I value him over some of the other players that I have considered in this category. I definitely value Micah Parsons a lot, but now you have the factors of DeMarcus Lawrence and Sam Williams coming into the equation that he has to fight for sacks with. You now have Pat Surtain, who's in the mix, but not the most dominant corner as of lately. You have Jack Jones, Jalen Ramsey as well. So I have to give it to Matt Judon here. I think he's been one of the more valuable defensive pieces as of recent. And yeah, I'm going to give the credit to him here. Matt Judon's my depoy. So if we look at our list so far, we have Saquon and 2 Tyreek Hills. We have Nick Bosa, Micah Parsons, and Matt Judon. We are all split up on this one. We now move to Offensive Rookie of the Year. And this sort of almost seemed clear-cut the last 3 weeks and how the season was going to shape out. However, there have been some factors that have come into the equation that have changed things. A player that we might have thought won this category is now out of the equation. I'll lead this one off. I once thought this was going to be Breece Hall to hit that there. It has now quickly moved to Dameon Pierce. I think Dameon Pierce at this point in the season is Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think it's also a strong case for Chris Olave, depending on which side of the equation you look at, whether it's rushing or receiving. But I think going forward in the way the Texans offense has shaped, it's gone all through Dameon Pierce. This kid, ever since week 3, has put up 17 points or more in all fantasy. I believe he's hit at least 85 rushing yards per game, if I'm not mistaken, as well. I'm going to go with Dameon Pierce here for Offensive Rookie of the Year. You guys can take it away. We'll start with Mike. Who's your O'Roy?
My Offensive Rookie of the Year is Chris Olave.
There it is.
Like you said, Breece Hall was the clear-cut guy. Such a thing, but he will no doubt he'll bounce back better than ever. Chris Olave, I'm picking him because of he's been basically the only trustworthy receiver on that Saints team, and what also led me to choose that is them surprisingly being top 5 in offensive yards per game, which is kind of wild to think about. And he's the only receiver on their team who has over 300 yards. He's just under 550. With Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry being out for a majority of the year, he's been, the only guy they can count on. Stepped into that role as their wide receiver 1 and been a trusting option, like I mentioned before. So shout out Chris Olave, my Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I also have Chris Olave. Just before this past week against the Raiders, Chris Olave was on a 5-game streak where he was either getting 100 yards per game or getting a touchdown. So that was pretty cool there to see. He's been unbelievable pretty much since he's gotten that number one receiving role since Michael Thomas is, ow, my toe hurts, mama,
Stop.
mama.
Stop.
All
Like,
right.
come on, bro. Brian Robinson got shot, and he's back after 4 games. Fix the toe, dude. But regardless, we're talking about Chris Olave. He's been unbelievable this season with a rotating plethora of quarterbacks. Famous Jameis, then the Red Rocket, and then Taysom for a couple drives. Yeah, okay. So he's dealing with a little bit of adversity of his own, but he's still putting up great numbers. He's right outside the top 10 receiving yards thus far this season. Brett, very much a good point. Rubbing salt in the wound, mentioning Brees Hall was probably my candidate a couple years back. I do want to say that Kenneth Walker is slowly creeping into that echelon where I'm considering him with Chris Olave. So he's a name to keep out an eye out for the next couple weeks. But as of now, I have Chris Olave as my offensive rookie of the year.
All right. So 2 Chris Olaves and 1 Damian Pierce on the board now. A little bit of some difference here in offensive rookie of the year. Let's transition to defensive rookie of the year now. I'll let Ben kick this one off this time. Could be some changes, potentially, depending on how we looked at it at the beginning of the season. Who's your defensive rookie of the year?
You like honey mustard, Brett? You like sweet and sour?
I like honey mustard.
You
Honey
like
mustard
hot
with a
sauce?
tangy barbecue.
You like barbecue? You like ketchup? Well, I like Gardner. I like Sauce Gardner. My preseason pick was Aiden Hutchinson, but I mentioned Sauce Gardner was the other guy that was really flipping a coin between, and Sauce Gardner is my guy thus far in the season. According to PFF, he is the highest graded cornerback against single coverage amongst any cornerback this season through the 2022 season. He has put up an unbelievable year thus far. He's been an unbelievable duo in that Jets cornerback room with DJ Reed, or secondary room with DJ Reed, I should say. They've been unbelievable. Sauce has been pretty consistent throughout the entire season. He's really climbing into that top echelon of corners, especially with a few guys kind of hitting their drop off this season. But Sauce is really cementing himself early on this season as a strong defensive player, a player that the Jets can build around. And so far, he's my defensive player of the year, or defensive rookie of the year, excuse me.
Mike?
Yep, same here. I got Sauce Gardner, and I remember Brett had Sauce Gardner as his preseason pick to win it, and I gave him flack, not because I didn't think he could, but because of the rarity of cornerbacks winning that award, winning the defensive rookie of the year, which is super impressive, and he's been, my God, one of the most impressive rookie cornerbacks in recent time. Everything Ben mentioned, and shout out to Tariq Woolen too. But I got Sauce.
You both got lost in the sauce in the preseason predictions. Mike's right. I did have Sauce Gardner as my preseason pick. I'm staying with Sauce Gardner for obvious reasons. He's been phenomenal. Ben hinted this stat I had here as well. Highest graded cornerback in single coverage this season as a whole. Unbelievable year that Sauce Gardner's had in the secondary room with DJ Reed, Michael Carter II. I have no words other than what's been described so far between you two. So it's a clear sweep. The first one we've had so far today. Ahmad Sauce Gardner is our defensive rookie of the year. We all agree here. So now we move on to some interesting categories, beginning with comeback player of the year. This is one where I feel this could go one or two ways, depending on how strongly opinionated each of them are on these particular players. Mike, you can kick this one off. Who is your comeback player of the year?
I'm going to have an unpopular opinion because of my idea of the comeback player of the year award. I have Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey is one of 2 players this year who has over 500 rushing yards and over 200 receiving yards. Him, along with Ramondre Stevenson of the Patriots, surprisingly. But Christian McCaffrey is a player to me, that most fits the bill of comeback player of the year. I know Saquon gets a lot of talk for this award. Saquon played 13 games last year. I know he dealt with a little ankle injury that kept him out for a few weeks, but I don't think being out 4 games qualifies you for a comeback player. Also, Geno Smith has also been talked about, which is fine, but I just see this award most fit for Christian McCaffrey's history with the injury coming over, now getting traded 2 weeks ago to the 49ers. And in his first game with a full week of practice with them, he was super impressive doing everything. So yeah, Christian McCaffrey is my comeback player of the year.
Ben?
Yeah, personally, I had Christian McCaffrey before the beginning of the season, and I get where Mike's coming from. I still think CMC is a valid candidate, but for me personally, I do have Saquon Barkley as my comeback player of the year. The way that I'm kind of looking at comeback is either, like Mike mentioned, you missed the majority of the previous season, or you're just facing a significant improvement back to the norm of where you were playing for compared to the previous season. Saquon, all due respect, was not himself last year. He was dealing with multiple injuries that kept him out for the 4 games, like Mike mentioned. He wasn't really healthy, dealing with a high ankle sprain the majority of the season, and he has been back this past season. He's right under 800 rushing yards so far through the Giants' first 8 games. He has arguably been the most valuable non-quarterback in the league this year. I don't think that's too much of an argument, especially where the Giants would be without him. He has been an unbelievable player. Comeback player of the year for me is someone that is just back to the norm or getting better than where they were previously. Saquon has done unbelievable this year. He's probably been the best running back in the league, aside from maybe Nick Chubb this season. He's been phenomenal. I got to give it to him. He is my comeback player of the year.
So we're at an even split here between Barkley and McCaffrey, which is where I thought this conversation was going to end up. I personally had Christian McCaffrey before this season began. I'm sticking with Christian McCaffrey.
Oh, I thought he was going to go with his third favorite team there.
I did too. I
really did.
Y'all thought I was going to go Geno the Hero?
Well, you are a big Seahawks fan, so
he's got a case.
He does have a case, don't get me wrong. But when I look specifically at comeback player of the year, I look at somebody who has either been significantly injured and has not played to the norm, or as Ben mentioned, somebody who was not themselves last year at all and increased significantly to where they're playing now.
When was the last time Christian McCaffrey had a full year? Was it 2019?
Yeah, it was 2019.
That's crazy.
As far as I can recall. Because that was the year he won or finished second to Michael Thomas and Oak Boy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which he should have won, by the way. That's
no way.
At the point.
But anyway, I look at this as McCaffrey. This is his first significant season back, and he looks fully healthy. He looks better than ever. I think in this system with San Francisco, he's been flourishing already. But yeah, I think this statistically and just a matter of value between the rest of the guys on the board, I think McCaffrey beats in some cases in this category. So I'm going with McCaffrey. No offense to Geno the Hero. I just don't see a comeback player type scenario here. Yes, he is now the starter, and there is a Cinderella storyline, but he's not really coming back from anything per se. So
he's coming back from playing on the bench.
I don't really see that as comeback player of the year. You were on the bench for a reason.
Neither do I. Well, I mean, to play devil's advocate, though. To play devil's advocate, though, he was behind the potential Hall of Famer.
That's right.
With Daniel Jones.
Let's continue.
Mark Sanchez.
Also, quick point here. 2019 Offensive Player of the Year. Bogus voting. Lamar Jackson beat out Christian McCaffrey, who put up 2,400 scrimmage yards.
That was Lamar's MVP year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, I mean, we don't. I don't think we mentioned this, but on here we don't rule in quarterbacks for offensive player of the year, um, which I think it should be strictly a skill position award. But hey, if you're playing to that level, shout out Lamar, shout out Justin Fields.
Yeah. Justin Fields. Interesting.
He's been in a roll.
Anywho,
Okay.
moving on to coach of the year. This is our next category. This might be more clear cut. I know there actually
Easy.
might be some differences. I think this is an easy choice for me at
It's
least.
so easy.
I can
Hey, you
lead it
start
out.
off.
I have Brian Dable as my coach of the year, leading the Giants to 6-2. They're pretty much in a position now where they could very well make the playoffs, at least as a wild card. I think Dable's gotten enough confidence out of Daniel Jones where we've seen a completely different side of him. The run game with Barkley's been phenomenal. Defensively, it was a big question, but hiring Mark Wintendale or Wink Mart, whatever, however you say his name,
Wink Martindale.
Wink Martindale.
Oh my goodness.
Making that hire was a big move. The defense has been phenomenal, particularly in the pass rush. But I'm going with Dable. Clear cut
You
for
like
me. Coach of the year.
you like his wink? Yeah, I'm going Brian Dable as well for all the points you mentioned.
He's going Mike McDaniel. I can see the smirk on his face.
No, I had Mike McDaniel before the season. My pick is Pete Carroll.
Ooh,
That's
I
not
like
bad.
My
this.
That's
pick
not
is
that's not bad
Pete
at all.
Carroll because I did a look-see back at my preseason predictions before I did this. I had the Seahawks going 3-14. And I
Mhm.
felt that was generous. And
Yeah,
they are currently 5-3 and leading what we called the hardest division, perhaps in NFL history last year. I know that the Rams are underperforming. The Niners are dealing with the ramifications of the Trey Lance injury. But you cannot ignore the Seahawks have currently the number one offense in the NFL, according to scrimmage yards. And I understand that their defense has been horrible this season, but they still have a plus minus in the positive for differential. And they're playing way over their skis right now. Like that has to be accounted for something. Like at least
sure.
I had some optimism and hope that Brian Dable could be a good coach and the Giants could be decent. They could maybe hit second place in that division. And I would say the same thing with Miami. I had optimism there already. I had nothing with the Seattle Seahawks. They lost their generational quarterback. They pretty much got rid of any players of note aside from their two-star receivers and Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. They had no one. And they're leading their division right now, and they're the number 3 seed in the NFC. I mean, you got to give some accountability to the coach there. Pete Carroll has gotten the most out of his players. Geno Smith has talked the utmost about Pete Carroll. Tyler Lockett said in an interview on Sunday, like, it's amazing what you can do when there's no ego in that locker room. No one's really like fighting for like the attention of what's going on in that team, and they're getting so much success from it. I got to give it to the coach, and that's Pete Carroll. So
That's a good pick. They had a great draft class as well this year too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Drake and Kenneth Walker, it's looking really good right now. And that's not even counting a first rounder. So
Yeah, I love that pick, despite what Mike and I have selected. But 2 Dables, 1 Pete Carroll. You could argue Pete Carroll for maybe even me as well, my third favorite team.
of course.
Why
Anyway,
do you hit us with the Vic face?
after that scary look, do we want to roll an MVP before our teams, or do we want to do the teams?
Never.
I mean, I'll just keep rolling.
All right, then let's keep rolling. Let's roll into most surprising team. I'll turn it over to Ben to start this one out.
Yeah, I'll just keep talking about the Seahawks here because they're my most surprising team. Again, out of for like 2 wins, they're leading what we thought was the hardest division in football last year. Best offense in the league, according to their scrimmage yards so far this season. They've been unbelievable. They've dealt with injuries already.
not to the degree of what San Francisco and the Rams are dealing with, but they're still dealing with their own stuff. Lost their starting running back. They've lost a couple players on defense. They've still looked unbelievable. Geno Smith has been the leader of this team. Their wide receivers are still doing great, and Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, arguably better than what they did last year with Russ. Wow. Kenneth Walker's been unbelievable in his limited time as a starting running back. Just need that defense to start kicking because you got Tariq Woolen and pretty much everyone else is asleep. So if he gets some help out there and they're still able to keep their offense rolling, they've just been an unbelievable surprise to me. Like, kind of wrote them off the first few weeks just because they were playing a lot of high-scoring teams. They got absolutely destroyed by the Niners in week 2. And then they've been on a roll since then. They've either been within one score and losing or just absolutely rolling their opponents like they have the past few weeks. So got to give it to the Seahawks.
Mike?
Where we at most surprising, right?
Yep.
I'm glad you're paying attention there, buddy.
I have the Giants listed here, but I want to show love to another team. It's the Atlanta Falcons for me. I had the Falcons at 4 wins, and they currently lead their division at 4-4. And I'm not putting them at most surprising because they're leading the division at 4-4. It's because I had them at 4 wins, and through 8 games they already have 4 wins, which is what I predicted them the win total to be. And 3 of their 4 losses have been within a possession, which is super impressive to me. Their roster on paper is really nothing, but I mean, they've been really impressive. I think Arthur Smith is very underrated, what he's doing with this team. And if they get, some pieces, which might take a few years or maybe not, who knows? You don't know. But this Atlanta Falcons have really, really surprised me this year.
Yeah, and I love that pick as well. I give a lot of credit to Atlanta. I actually had the Seahawks listed as my most surprising team as well, considering the fact that I had them as my number 1 overall pick in this year's draft, and they now have well over the win column that I had them at to begin this year. I'm going with Seattle, all for the clear choices as well. It's Ben talked about. So 2 Seahawks and 1 Falcons. Mike also mentioned the Giants. I also had the Giants as a runner-up. So we conclude this category. Moving on, most disappointing team, the opposite side of the spectrum. I will lead this one out. For me, it was pretty easy. This one for me is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I honestly thought the Buccaneers were going to have such an easy ride in this division. Seeing that they were making an internal hire with Todd Bowles, everybody loved the scheme. Tom Brady coming back, confident as ever. They have not looked good at all, even with people back healthy. They have Godwin back. They have Evans. Brady doesn't look the same. The defense has not been holding up their end of the bargain. This team does not look like they did 2-3 years ago under Bruce Arians. And the 3-5 record, I think, is honestly valid and accurate to where they're playing at right now. So I have the Buccaneers as my most disappointing team this far. And I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, at this point if there's a chance they lose this division. Mike?
My most disappointing team is the Denver Broncos. I think there are a lot of, solid options, the Bucks being one of them. Broncos came into this. I did have them at 10 wins, which is nothing super crazy, but just how they've looked really bad. Defensively, they've been great. What they're doing on the defense side of the ball is great, but that just gets overshadowed with their offensive struggles. Head coach Russell Wilson, who is kind of turned into a meme at this point.
Not kinda. He is a meme.
He is. He went from one of the most loved quarterbacks to he's kind of hated at this point.
He is. Trust.
So they've just been very, very, disappointing and leaves a lot to be desired for this Broncos offense. So it's Denver. We'll see what Benny has to say now.
Mine is also Denver, but I want to get some love to a different team that is just as horrible, and that's the Packers.
Yep. Maybe
Aaron
not
Rodgers, you stink. You're horrible. I know you lost Devontae Adams. Oh, we'll play the small violin. You have arguably like the second, third worst offense in the league. Like Denver definitely is the worst. And it might be like the Texans and then like a pile of poop and then the Packers, but still they're pretty bad. Like literally Aaron Jones is the only person on offense playing anything. I know that David Bakhtiari and Alan Lazard have missed a couple games each. They're important pieces on offense, but you cannot keep like complaining about your situation like Aaron Rodgers has. He literally got the big contract. He's the reason that Devontae Adams isn't there anymore. And he's still complaining about like having no one that he can trust on offense, which is fair because like Christian Watson can't stay healthy and none of those guys can as well. The defenses look bad the past few weeks. They've been embarrassed arguably in like 2 or 3 straight games. Like it's bad that I'm getting hopeful that they kept it within 2 scores against the Bills. Like that's bad. Like the Packers were supposed to be like second best team in the NFC, third best team in the NFC this year for me. So it's just ugly. And
this Packers team, continue.
They're like they for me were one of the like best coach teams in the NFL the past few years. Like they've been consistently good. They have like usually one bad game in the regular season the past few years under Matt LaFleur, but they clean it up right away. They always keep a clean game script, and in the playoffs they just have some issues. But man, they just look tired. They're not putting in as much effort as you can. They really have no answers to like what's going on with them. It's just bad football. They look bad in all regards the past few weeks. Simple as that.
Last year's Packers team would have a field day in the NFC this year.
Yep.
They would have ran circles around every team.
Oh, I would agree with that. Yeah.
But they've been very, very disappointing. They were also another team that I'm glad I got mentioned because they have been disappointing as well.
Extremely.
Shout out Colts too. I also had them written down.
Oof. So we got the Colts, the Packers, the Broncos, the Buccaneers.
Oh, and the Rams. Brett didn't mention them because he's their second favorite team, but the Rams stink.
Do the Cardinals even get considered as disappointing at this point?
No, because Cliff Kingsbury's a meme as a fucking.
I mean, maybe for you, but I had them at 7-10.
Yeah, I had them at 7-10.
I'm not super disappointed by them.
They've got another quarterback that's a meme too, because you have Patrick Peterson saying, "I'm playing COD in the end zone, picking off Kyler." Come on, bro. Come on, Buggy.
Anyway, let's move on here. Most improved player. We now move to the individual category for most improved. Mike, who is your most improved player in this case?
It's not really a question for me. It's Geno Smith. Geno Smith, most improved. He was literally a backup since his first few years in the league with the Jets. He's just been around from the Jets to the Giants to the Seahawks, and he's been the Seahawks backup for the past 3 years, coming in and being really, really impressive this year. His numbers are comparable to a lot of the top guys, are just under that top tier right down there. So for me, it's clearly Geno Smith, based off of the way of, how his career arc, basically.
Ben?
I agree 100%. It's Geno Smith. I don't think there's much competition. I had two before the beginning of the season, and that's looking pretty good right now, but I couldn't have predicted this. Geno is doing unbelievable. He's led the Seahawks to a 5-3 record, like I mentioned. He leads the league currently in completion percentage, is up there in passing yards as well, I believe top 12. So he's done an unbelievable job. Not really much to say. Like he is coming straight up out of nowhere, and he is putting himself in a conversation where he should be in the Pro Bowl this year as of now, and that's something to be held with all the quarterbacks are in the NFC. So
Surprisingly, I actually didn't have Geno Smith here. I didn't. I want to give love to another guy, and that's Marcus Mariota from the Atlanta Falcons. Mariota's also coming into this year as practically a backup and didn't really do much other than like his first year on the Titans. This year, he's got just a little bit over a 60% completion percentage, almost 1,500 yards, 10 TDs, 92.7 quarterback rating. It's not as good as Geno Smith. However, I wanted to give some love here to Mariota, who's really stepped in and taken over a situation in Atlanta that, quite frankly, wasn't anything to begin with. I mean, at least Geno Smith had some weapons to work with. Mariota's got practically nothing other than Kyle Pitts. So I wanted to give some love to Mariota here, but
Right.
Geno Smith, I think, in this case, is the clear cut.
Oh,
I think
you
Geno's the
worded
clear
that.
cut. But I
You
wanted to
worded
give,
that so weird at the beginning. I think your
I
pick
did.
was Mariota.
I have Mariota down here, but I think the clear cut's Geno.
You just love to be different, huh?
Oh, I love to be different. I love to create conversation.
oh my god. Oh, and we'll get that conversation going in a couple. Won't trust on that.
Most improved team. We move on here. Ben, you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, that would be the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins have gone from a non-playoff team last year. They were 7-10 to a team that I would say is in the conversation for Super Bowl contenders at this point. Like, we might get into it a little bit later, but with the acquisition of Bradley Chubb this week, they've made some unbelievable moves in the offseason, and they've just looked great. They are undefeated when Tua Tagovailoa starts and finishes a football game. They are 5-0. They have the offensive player of the year in my eyes, and Tyreek Hill, along with Jalen Waddle. Tua's been unbelievable on offense. The defense has been a little bit shaky at times, but with the addition of Bradley Chubb, you've got some guys in the cornerback room with Xavier Howard and those crew. They're really good, and they are right up there with the Bills and Chiefs, probably a little bit lower than those two, but they are right up there with those two and the Eagles as top teams in the NFL. Probably didn't see that at the beginning of the season. I saw maybe a little bit of glimpse of hope with Mike McDaniel there, but yeah, they've been the most improved team for me.
Mike?
Or most surprising, whatever the thing is called.
Most improved team.
Oh, most improved. There we go.
My most improved team is the Philadelphia Eagles. I got to give the undefeated team some love. Last year, winning 9 games. To this year, will have 9 wins in their 9th game. They've been really, really impressive, and the improvements have made on both sides of the ball this past offseason. The improvements of Jalen Hurts. Miles Sanders has even been, better than he has been in the past. A.J. Brown. And then defensively, you have Jordan Davis, who just got put on IR with an ankle injury. You have Hassan Reddick, who's been great. James Bradbury, him and Darius Slay have been maybe the best cornerback duo in the league so far. And even they traded for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who has been, a solid pickup for them. So them being the only undefeated team in the league says something, and it's due to all the improvements they made in the offseason. So they are my most improved. I'm the only undefeated team, the Philadelphia Eagles. Shout out G.
Shout out G is right. I'm actually going Miami here as well with Ben. I had Miami as my most improved team in the preseason. I'm going with them again here in midseason. When you're going from a non-playoff team to championship contention, borderline Super Bowl contenders, I think that speaks volume. And the amount of efficiency that the offense has had here for Miami, I think, quite frankly, is, uncomparable in some cases, except for the big name teams that we always talk about, Kansas City, Buffalo, in the AFC, to name a few. So I think that speaks volume. I don't really take in consideration the record at this point because 3 of those games, you had Skylar Thompson and Teddy Bridgewater under center. So I'm going with the Dolphins here. I think they're the most improved team at 5-3. And with that, it wraps up our other smorgasbord categories. So 2 Dolphins here in the most improved and 1 Philadelphia Eagles. And that only leaves 1 category left, the MVP. Question is, who is leading out this topic?
Brett, you are.
All right. You guys really want to talk? Well, my MVP is in Ben's closet. If you want to whip out the shirt.
About that.
My MVP is Joe Burrow right now. It is not Jalen Hurts. I've switched from preseason to midseason. Joe Burrow has been one of the most electric quarterbacks besides the big ones to begin this season. He is number 1 in pass TDs, top 5 in yards per game. He's top 5 in completion percentage. And quite frankly, when all of his receivers are healthy, I don't think anybody can stop Joe Burrow at this point. I love this pick. I really wanted Jalen Hurts, but just looking at the statistics, he's right down in the top 10 where everybody expected him this year, despite the massive firepower the Eagles have had on offense this year. I'm going with Joe Burr. I don't know who you guys got, but we move on.
All right, I'll go next, and this is the accurate leader of touchdown passes. It is not Joe Burrow. I'm going Pat Mahomes. I've been saying Pat Mahomes. We talked about a few weeks ago who our guy would be between Mahomes and Josh Allen. I still think they're 1 and 2. But same reasons I gave him then, I still give him now. Mahomes, I mean, you break down MVP to the definition, and I think he is the most valuable player to his team in terms of switching up the whole offense, in terms of losing Tyreek Hill, which people thought would, be a big hit, and he really hasn't lost a step. He's got on with his other guys in Juju and MVS, and now Kadarius Toney hopefully can be something. We hope for the Chiefs fans. So it is Pat Mahomes for me. Josh Allen is right there. I think they're going to be fighting for that thing the whole season. But I got Mahomes through the halfway point.
So before you go, Ben, I wanted to correct myself. I actually have it number 1 passing yards. I know he's not touchdowns.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just mixed it up on my end as far as looking back at my notes. So the floor is yours, Ben.
Oh, I thank you, Brett. So I'm sticking with my guns here as well. I had Joe Burrow before the beginning of the season, but similar to Mike, we had this conversation a couple weeks back. Go check out the previous episode if you want to. Link in, I don't know, the description, the bio, whatever.
Yeah.
I have Josh Allen still. I think that Josh Allen is the most valuable player to not only his team, or the more valuable player to his team compared to Mahomes, just because I don't think anyone provides more to their team. Like, Josh Allen is the best running back on his team as the quarterback. He is pretty much the reason that their offense is as good as they are. He's pretty much their go-to on third downs, just running it. And also he probably has the best deep ball arm in the league, so he's able to probably take shots down the end of the field with Stephon Diggs, Dawson Knox, and Gabe Davis with the best of them. I got to give it to Josh Allen still. I think Mahomes is still in the conversation, and Burrow is as well. I like both of those guys as well. But I don't see anyone providing as much value to their team as Josh Allen is. I think Mahomes probably has a little bit better numbers, but just talking about what the award is, it's not the best player, it's the most valuable player. And to me, that's Josh Allen.
Their stats are crazy similar.
It's ridiculously similar.
Like
Right next
Josh
to each
Allen. Josh Allen has 40 more passing yards. He has 0.1% more yards, average yards per throw. He has 6 more yards per game. Mahomes has 20 touchdowns, 5 picks. Josh Allen has 19 touchdowns, 6 picks. Their QBR is identical at 76.5, and Mahomes' passer rating is 4 points higher than Josh Allen. So, like, whoever you want, they're both super deserving, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can agree with both of you. I think at this point, it's going to be one of them. Joe Burrow's in the conversation.
No, you
as
don't.
well.
You think it's Joe Burrow?
Let me finish.
Finish.
If the Bengals continue to be back and forth this season, it's going to be either Mahomes or Allen. I want Joe Burrow, and I think it's going to be Joe Burrow just based on the statistics and the way the offense has been shaped around Burrow. They can't go anywhere without him. And I think the Bengals are going to be solely reliant on Burrow to make it far like they did last season. Very similar to that Super Bowl run. So, like I said, I'm going to back up Burrow here. I could definitely see cases for Allen and Mahomes as well. But once again, we all – oh, were you going to say something, Mike?
Yeah, these aren't predictions. You're projecting and predicting.
All right, then let me rephrase. Joe Burrow is the MVP.
At the
projection.
midseason. There we go.
Yes.
There. I'm surprised you didn't stick with Jalen Hurts. You've stuck with like most of your picks, and he was right there. You picked him, right? He was your preseason pick.
Yeah, you're right. I've stuck with the majority of my picks, but I think just looking at the value of each player, again, like Ben said, it's the most valuable player. Joe Burrow is very much valued on the Bengals. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, valued. No one can get there very much. The Bengals, Chiefs, and Bills can't get there without those three guys. When I look at the Eagles, I don't know. I think there's a lot more factors that go into that offense besides Jalen Hurts to put them at where their value is right now.
Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. I think you're digging yourself into a hole. Move on.
I don't think I am, but
then let's get into a conversation. Because Jalen Hurts has 4 turnovers this year. He is, I think, rushing probably second, third most rushing yards per any quarterback. He's leading probably the most efficient rushing team in the league. You think another quarterback could do that?
I think it's hard to take.
He's third in no, he's fourth in rushing yards for a quarterback.
Okay.
Hurts has been valuable. Don't get me wrong. And I love him. That's why I made Hurts my preseason MVP. Right? But between the statistics that he's put up in the last few games, plus just seeing what's been going on with the Eagles, comparing him to Burrow, to Allen, to Mahomes, to guys of that nature, I had to pick Burrow over Hurts in this case.
Okay, but I'm not comparing him to those guys. I was just going off of what you said, which was like he was more replacement level than like, or that's not what you said, but like, I don't know, you were making it sound like another quarterback could do what Jalen Hurts is currently doing right now on the Eagles, which I don't agree with.
Fair enough. Anyways, we can put that aside.
Brett.
Yeah.
You said last few games he hasn't been the same, dog. He has 6 touchdowns the last 2 weeks. That's why I said move on. You're digging yourself into a hole. So you like the Bengals 500 record over the Eagles being under? Move on. You're digging yourself deep.
I didn't say anything.
You said
you said you liked them and you didn't like what Jalen Hurts has done the past few weeks.
Yes, I did say that at that point in time, but just now with the Bengals, that I did not say.
What would the Bengals?
You know what? Never mind. Throw it out.
Good.
Oh my goodness.
Good.
Ooh. Game of the week, everyone. Game of the week. My game of the week. And this is usually just our game coming up on this week's slate, this being week 9, that I'm looking forward to the most. And that would be, I believe this is our Sunday night game. If not, it's one of the 4 o'clock slot. I have the Titans going into Arrowhead playing the Kansas City Chiefs. The Titans have won 5 straight games after getting the doors blown off of them by the Buffalo Bills, but they've looked very well the past month or so. They have swept the Colts. They've beaten pretty much all their divisional opponents, making them look like the most competent team in that division. They were able to beat the Texans last week, pretty much only with Derrick Henry, because Malik Willis did nothing in his starting debut. We'll see if he has to start this week against Kansas City. That would be a nightmare for Tennessee, but hopefully Ryan Tannehill should be back. He was dealing with injury and he was also sick, so it was just a really bad combo for Tannehill, but he should be back and everything. I think this is an interesting matchup because I don't think Kansas City's going to blow them out like Buffalo did. That's no indication against Kansas City versus Buffalo or anything. I just think Tennessee has kind of just gotten a little bit better over the season. Their defense is still competent, kind of despite my belief beginning of the season. I thought they'd gotten a little bit worse. They still seem pretty competent. I know they haven't played the biggest competition on offense, but I still think they'll be able to make it a ball game against Kansas City. We know Derrick Henry's had a lot of success against Kansas City in the previous couple of years. He had that really big game in the regular season last year where Tennessee was able to beat Kansas City. So we've seen them do it in the regular season before. Yet to see it in the playoffs, but hey, we're still in week 9 of the regular season, so not saying anything there. And hey, anything can happen. Kansas City coming off their bye week. They've had a little bit more time to prepare. We will see how they use their new weapon in Kadarius Toney, if at all, because I don't know if that hamstring is like freaking gabagool or healthy. We'll see. But yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting matchup. Why have it game of the week?
Mike?
What a meme, bro. What a meme.
I have
announced his replacement on draft night.
My game of the week is Seattle and Arizona, a nice divisional matchup. Seattle, as Brett and Ben said earlier, as their most surprising team through the midseason. They've been very good. They beat the 6-1 Giants last week at the time, making them 6-2, and they're going into Arizona. I believe it's in Arizona. They're 5-3. Arizona is 3-5. They played before, and Seattle won. We'll see if they can go for the sweep, which would have great, straight. Can't think of the word I'm trying to use here, but it would mean a lot for them to go in and sweep for divisional purposes. Sure, I guess that works. Getting those 2 wins against Arizona, a divisional opponent. I think it'll be a good game. I think Arizona has somewhat improved. I mean, D-Hop being back the past 2 games has looked great. Kyler Murray has basically a security blanket there. So that should be a decent matchup, I see them right around the same, even though Seattle has been better. But we know how Arizona can play, so that game should be a good one.
Yeah, and then for me, I have the Dolphins and Bears actually as my game of the week.
Really shout out Chase Claypool then.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, I think it's safe to say Chicago's offense is a lot more exciting than what people expected coming into this year. Justin Fields has been lighting it up. He's now got Chase Claypool as a legit target to help complement Khalil Herbert, David Montgomery, Darnell Mooney. It's going to be a good show in Chicago. They're going to have to try and sort of defend this Miami offense without Roquan Smith, without Robert Quinn. They traded both away at the deadline, 2 of their biggest pieces, arguably, on the defensive front of the football. So I think it's going to be a very much high-scoring offensive game on both sides. It's going to be interesting to factor how much Chicago can come back from that Dallas game. They started to regain some ground at the end of that game in Dallas, but in that first half, they did not look pretty at all. I don't expect that from them in this game. I think it'll be much closer than what people expect. So I have the Dolphins and the Bears as my game of the week. And with that, it wraps up our game of the week session here on the 3 Now podcast. We've got one to go, and that is our Stan Sessions to wrap things up as always. just as a refresher for those who are new here on the 3 and Out podcast, we each pick 2 of our stands or favorite players / coaches / general front office / whoever you honestly might want it to be.
And little side note, he's only mentioning the coaches and front office because that's what he goes with most of the time. It started off as just players. Brett went into long snappers and kickers is a big one. He hasn't used kickers. I think we've kind of bullied him.
Long snappers? I did not use long snappers.
I think it would be a viable option for you.
Anything's not a viable option for me. But anyway.
Yeah, we know that. We know that.
Let's jump into it. Mike, you can kick this one off considering you're very eager to see what we got here. Who's your first stand?
My first is Christian McCaffrey. I got to show love to the boy. First full game or first full week of practice with the San Francisco 49ers, his new team. And he has 3 total touchdowns, passing, rushing, and receiving. The first time that's been done since 2005, which is kind of an impressive feat. And their offense looks fun. With Jimmy G maybe not being – well, he wasn't the guy at the beginning of the year with Trey Lance, but Trey Lance unfortunately went down with an injury. Maybe we'll see Christian McCaffrey get some snaps at the quarterback position. Jokes. That's a BC take right there. But yeah, shout out Christian McCaffrey because he was fun. They get a fun offense, and Brett left,
and we lost him. So just to keep it going here, quick add on to that. Christian McCaffrey is the first player to pass for, to receive, and to rush for a touchdown since LaDainian Tomlinson in 2006, I want to say. So that's only a thing that's happened 2005. There we go. Did you already say that?
I did.
I'm so sorry.
Hey,
it's so fucking disrespectful.
If the people at home were listening, they know now.
We're paying attention to Brett's shut off screen. I'm sorry. But yeah, that Christian McCaffrey was going to be a stand of mine if you didn't pick that. So I'm very glad that you did, Mike. My first stand is a duo. What? That's a little creative. My duo stand of the week is Geno Smith and Tyler Lockett. What? You might be saying, Ben
puts his own ad libs in too.
What are you talking about? Geno? Well, obviously he had a good game, beat the Giants, but why Tyler Lockett? Well, Tyler Lockett was all over the Seahawks Giants game. If you didn't watch it, I don't blame you if you didn't watch it, but if you did,
that was the best game of the week.
It was probably the best game of the week. Tyler Lockett in the second quarter drops and fumbles on like the 4-yard line. So the Giants are able to get it right away. Saquon runs in for a quick touchdown. Oh, you feel horrible for Tyler Lockett. Quick fumble. Then in the third quarter, he drops an easy basket catch for a 30-yard touchdown from Geno. And he feels awful. And then he goes to the bench. And Geno says, you know what? You're an all-pro. You're Tyler Lockett. You're great. Don't get down on yourself. And then what happens in the fourth quarter? Tyler Lockett from Geno Smith catches another beauty of a touchdown. Ends up being the game-winning touchdown for Seattle in that game. So I love the little story arc there. It's not something I created up. Look it up, Fox. They were covering it. I love that for Geno Smith, Tyler Lockett, and everyone was rooting for good old Baldy Tyler. So we love that. And that's duos, Stan, Geno and Tyler Lockett.
It's funny because my first stand is also a duo. This is very ironic. Extremely, extremely, extremely ironic. Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown are my first stand of the week.
That's good.
I say that heavy ironic. Obviously, Hurts and A.J. Brown. Oh, and he's gone. He's going to the closet. Anyways, 4 TDs from Jalen Hurts. AJ 2K, there he is. Always open.
The angel.
Singing out the abused animal song with
You smelling the jersey? You smelling your own aroma?
I was kissing it. You weirdo. Keep going.
He kisses the jersey and calls you a weirdo.
Anyways, 3 TDs from A.J. Brown on the day. Ridiculous day from AJ2K. Jalen Hurts had 4 total touchdowns on the afternoon. Great day out of both. It was a good duo, and it just goes to show how much both of them can wreak havoc. We're going to forget what we said earlier in the podcast. We're just going to focus on this. Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown.
You said it.
I'm going to forget what I said. Move on,
Okay.
Mike.
Back to
My
me.
goodness. Woohoo.
My next stand, we got to shout out defensive players. I got Big Zaddy Smith. Zadarius Smith, 3 sacks on the year, acquired in the offseason. He is a Viking currently, and he's tied for first in sacks. Acquired from the Green Bay Packers. Yes, acquired from the Green Bay Packers. He didn't play at all last year, I don't believe. Dealing with an injury. And he signed with or agreed to terms with Baltimore. Took that back and said, I'm going to go to the Purple People Eaters, dog. I'll run around with Daniil. I'll run around with the straight Harrison Smith. And I'll be Big Zaddy Smith. And he's doing just that with Minnesota. So shout out him. 3 sacks on the day. Yeah.
Yeah, Wheezy. Okay.
Yeah, young Weezy.
Oh,
Young Mula Pay.
we'll mute that. Ignore that. I'll go with my second stand here, and
RIP Takeoff. I cried twice.
RIP Takeoff.
okay, well,
Mama.
a little sad, are we?
Takeoff.
Okay.
Go.
Along with other people that are sad, because this man, I guess, can't keep the starting job, even though he scored for 3 touchdowns. Tony Pollard, my second stand of the week. Jerry Jones said on Sunday, "Oh, I love Zeke. He's gonna be the starter." Oh. Well, Tony Pollard just rushed for 130 yards, 3 touchdowns. Unbelievable game in a 49-point victory for the Cowboys. They had 49 points. They didn't beat them 49-0. But still, Cowboys looked unbelievable. Tony Pollard was super efficient against the Bears on Sunday. Guess he's going to be second fiddle again, so that seems like a great utilization. We love money. Cut Zeke, feed Tony.
I agree. Cut Zeke, feed Tony. Anyways, my last stand of the week is another offensive player. That's Tyler Conklin from the Jets. Oh, baby, Tyler Conklin. A very abysmal day for the Jets, but this man had 2 touchdowns, his best game of the year. He's been a lot better, especially in this Jets offense, than the Vikings last year with Kirk Cousins. Brutal for Tyler Conklin, but nonetheless has found his way with the Jets, and this is a career game for him. So I'm a Tyler Conklin stan. And with that, it wraps up our stand sessions and episode 11 here on the 3 and Out podcast. That'll do it for us 3. Be sure to stay tuned in for more episodes coming from us 3 next week.
More episodes. We wanted to, single the midseason awards out separately. We will be back with another 3 and Out extra before next week's pod. Just highlighting some of the trades and how we think they will affect the teams on both sides, maybe trade grades. Ben putting AJ Brown in his face. But yeah, so be on the lookout for a 3 and Out extra coming before next week's pod. Yeah, we haven't done one of those in a minute, and Brett's gonna join us for his first extra because he was not on the first one, but he will be there. You will see that smiling face on there, and you will see that soul patch. So you don't worry.
I don't know if there's no soul patch. There could be one. There could be one for the next episode.
It isn't?
Nah.
What do you just have a dent there?
Pretty much.
Well, that's it
Oh.
for the 3 and Out podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe. If you enjoyed this episode, check us out on all social medias, 3 and Out Pod 1. And for Mike Cicchetti and Brett Schaubs, I've been Ben Pope. Take care. Brush your hair.